St. Johns County has one of the lowest property tax rates in the entire state of Florida. But that doesn't always mean your tax bill will be low. In fact, the amount you actually pay can vary a lot depending on the neighborhood, the price you pay for your home, and whether you qualify for exemptions. So if you're moving to the area and only looking at what shows up on Zillow or Realtor.com, there's a good chance you're seeing the seller's tax bill, not what yours will be. And if you're not prepared for that, it can really throw off your budget. Let's break down how it all works so there are no surprises. If we haven't met yet, I'm Josh Rogers. I've been a real estate agent for the past 15 years, and I lead the F3 home team right here in St. Johns County. Every week, I work with families who are relocating, helping them figure out not just which house makes sense, but which neighborhood, school zone, and lifestyle actually fits the way they live. So if a move to St. Johns County is on your radar and you want someone local to walk you through the options, just shoot me a quick text. I'll help you think through the timeline, the budget, and what areas might be the best fit for your family. So let's start with the basics, because this is the part that trips a lot of people up. In St. Johns County, property taxes typically run about a median rate of 1.13% of your home's assessed value. That rate is actually lower than the national average, and it's one of the reasons many families consider Florida in the first place. But here's where it gets real. Florida resets the assessed value when a home is sold. That means your property taxes aren't based on what the current owner is paying, they're based on what you pay for the home. So let's say the seller bought the house 10 years ago, and they've been paying around $3,500 in taxes. You come in and buy it today at a much higher market value, maybe $525,000. Once the county resets the assessed value, your tax bill could easily jump to around $5,900 a year. And that's going to hit your monthly escrow like clockwork. This is one of those details that doesn't always show up in the Zillow listing or the agent remarks, but it makes a big difference when you're trying to plan your monthly budget accurately. If you're a family trying to avoid surprises and stick to a clear financial game plan, this is a number you want to understand up front, not after closing. Now, if this is going to be your full-time home, like you're moving the family, changing your driver's license, registering the kids in school, there's some really good news. Florida offers a Homestead Exemption, and it's one of the biggest tax benefits available to homeowners here. Here's how it works. If you own the home and it's your primary residence as of January 1st, you can file for the exemption. Once approved, you'll get up to $50,000 knocked off your assessed value for tax purposes. That alone saves most homeowners several $100s a year, right off the top. But the real magic happens with what's called the Save Our Homes cap. This law limits how much your assessed value can increase every year, capping it at 3%, even if your home's market value shoots up 10% or more. So over time, your taxes stay much more predictable, even if the real estate market around you is going crazy. I've had clients who've lived here for 10 plus years and are paying significantly less in taxes than their neighbors, simply because they locked in their homestead early. Now here's the catch, and it's a big one. This only applies if you're a Florida resident and it's your primary home. If this is a second home, a vacation property, or something you're renting out, you don't qualify. That means you'll be taxed at full market value, and there's no protection from rising assessed values down the road. So for families who are relocating and planning to live here full-time, that homestead exemption is a major win. But if you're buying a home you won't be living in, it's important to factor in that higher long-term tax cost when comparing your options. Now, this is something else a lot of people do not know. Not all neighborhoods in St. Johns County are taxed the same. And if you're comparing two homes at similar prices, the tax differences between them could be bigger than you think. For example, if you're looking at a home in Ponte Vedra Beach, you'll likely see higher property tax bills. That's partly because homes there tend to be larger or more expensive, but also because some of the communities have higher millage rates and added CDD fees built into the tax bill. You're paying for location, schools, lifestyle, and often beach proximity, and all of that is reflected in the numbers. Now compare that to areas like Elkton or some of the more rural pockets west of St. Augustine. These areas often have lower home prices, fewer community-wide amenities, and sometimes no CDDs at all. That usually means a lower annual tax bill, which can be really helpful if you're trying to keep your monthly payment in check. And speaking of CDDs, this is a biggie. In communities like Nocatee, Rivertown, or SilverLeaf, you're getting access to top-tier amenities, pools, water parks, fitness centers, trails, and beautifully maintained public areas. But here's what you need to know. Those features were funded through CDD bonds, and the cost to repay those bonds is added directly into your annual property tax bill. So it's not a separate monthly fee like an HOA, it's part of the tax total that shows up in your mortgage escrow. For a lot of families, this is totally worth it. You're getting an incredible lifestyle and built-in value for the cost. But if you're comparing a Nocatee home to one just outside the CDD boundary in a non-master planned community, you'll want to account for the difference in your total yearly housing cost. If you're starting to picture your life here and want a more behind-the-scenes look at what living in St. Johns County is really like, I'd like to invite you to my private Facebook group. It's a space where families share tips, ask questions, and connect with others who are making the move or already settling in. It's one of the best ways to get local insight from real people living it every day. I'd love to see you in there. Now let's get back into the video. Here's a detail that catches a lot of new homeowners off guard, especially if you're relocating from out of state. Every August, St. Johns County mails out what's called a trim notice, and it stands for truth in millage, and it's basically your preview of what your property taxes will be for the upcoming year. This notice tells you 3 key things: your home's assessed value, the millage rate, and your estimated property tax bill. But here's the part you really need to know: that assessed value may not reflect your recent purchase price yet. Let me break it down. Florida reassesses property values annually, but it doesn't happen immediately after you close. So let's say you buy a home in June or July, right before the trim notices go out. The county might still be using the old assessed value from the previous owner when they calculate your upcoming tax bill. That means your first tax estimate could be way off, and that can throw your monthly escrow payments out of whack. A lot of families see this happen when they get their mortgage escrow adjustment notice the following year, and suddenly their monthly payment jumps by several $100s. So what do you do about it? You plan ahead. When I work with families moving into St. Johns County, I always say don't rely on the seller's current tax bill or what shows up on Zillow. Instead, budget based on what your tax bill will be after reassessment, which is roughly 1.13% of your purchase price before exemptions. That gives you a far more accurate picture of what to expect once the dust settles. And if you're buying in the second half of the year, just know that your trim notice might not reflect your full tax reality yet. So don't ignore it, but also don't assume it's final. This is one of those small details that makes a big difference when you're trying to avoid surprises and budget responsibly. Property taxes aren't something to fear, they're just something to understand upfront. And in a fast-moving market like St. Johns County, clarity on this one topic can save you a ton of stress later. So what should you do next? First, make sure you know what exemptions you qualify for. If this will be your primary residence, applying for the Homestead Exemption is a no-brainer. It can save you hundreds of dollars a year and protect you from steep increases in the future. Next, understand what's actually included in your annual tax bill. In many newer master-planned communities like Nocatee, SilverLeaf, Rivertown, and Beachwalk, the CDD fee is built right into the property tax line item. So while it's not technically a separate bill, it's still part of your yearly cost, and it's something you'll want to account for when comparing neighborhoods. Also, don't forget to check for flood zones. If a home is in a high-risk flood zone, not only will it likely require flood insurance, but it could also increase your monthly escrow, and that's directly tied to your overall cost of ownership. And finally, be realistic about how reassessments and market value play into your first-year taxes. If you're basing your budget on the seller's current bill, you might be in for a surprise when your first full tax year kicks in. At the end of the day, the more informed you are going into the home search, the smoother the entire process feels. That's why my team and I take the time to walk through these things with you, not just to get you into a house, but to make sure it's the right financial fit for your family long term. So if you're seriously considering a move to St. Johns County and want help running the numbers, comparing neighborhoods, or just figuring out what fits your budget and lifestyle best, shoot me a quick text. I'll help you map out your next steps with confidence. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.